Hi, I'm Annie and welcome to Gimme Lemons. I hope you're doing well. I'm really excited about today's episode. We're going to be making Bibimbap, which in Korean translates into mixed rice. Bibimbap is infinitely customizable in that it was traditionally the result of Koreans taking whatever leftover banchan they had and mix them all up for an easy, food-saving one-pot meal. In fact, when my mom was young, they didn't even have enough bowls for all the kids, so her mom threw everything together in one giant mixing bowl from which she and her 2 brothers and 3 sisters ate all together. So rather than giving you a fixed recipe, I wanted to provide a guide or an approach, let's say, to making it your way with simple staples you can easily find at your local grocery store. I'll also be sharing with you 4 key tips at the end of this video, so be sure to stick around. This idea of using what you can find is actually very Korean in itself, since so much of the cuisine is built on foraging in the mountains or doing what my mom did when she was a kid, just picking wild herbs off the side of the road and turning them into delicious marinated vegetables called namul. So in that spirit, let me start by showing you some basic ingredients I found at my local grocery store. I imagine most of you around the world can access these ingredients, and they alone would make a perfectly decent bibimbap. But you can also think about how you can build upon this base with vegetables that are common in your region. For example, here in Germany, parsnip and kohlrabi are widely available. I also struck gold with these amazing root vegetables and oyster mushrooms at the farmer's market. So let's prepare all the ingredients. First, slice the onion about a 1/4 inch thick. A big bulk of the work for bibimbap is actually cutting all the vegetables, and sometimes it's what hinders people from making it more often. This is where having good knife skills comes in. If you'd like to brush up on your knife skills, I'll put a link up top to a tutorial that I made as well as in the description below. Next, let's julienne the carrot. They can be on the thicker side so you have some texture to them. Once you have the slices, either stack them up or lay them out like cards and then julienne. Now do the same with parsnips, zucchini, and cucumber. You can do this with a knife, or if you plan to make bibimbap often, I highly recommend investing in a mandolin like this. It comes with a julienne blade, but I use the slice function and run through it with a knife. I'll put a link to the mandolin in the description below. Let's move on to the kohlrabi. If you've never had kohlrabi before, they have a very similar flavor and texture to mu or Korean radish, so they're perfect for making saengchae, a refreshing Korean radish salad. A lot of people toss the leaves of the kohlrabi, but here they're perfect for bibimbap, so I'll chop them up finely and set them aside with the spinach. Cut off either end of the kohlrabi, then with a paring knife, peel it like an apple. I would slice them a bit thinner than the carrots and then julienne them lengthwise. Set those aside. Now let's see about those root vegetables. I was really excited to see the salsify and sunchoks because their flavors are reminiscent of the earthy root vegetables so loved in Korean cuisine. First, prepare 2 bowls of water with some lemon juice. This will keep the vegetables from oxidizing. With salsify, it's a good idea to wear gloves to protect the fingers from turning color. We'll cut the salsify the same as parsnips. Then, we'll slice the sunchokes relatively thin with a mandolin. As for mushrooms, you can use button mushrooms here if that's all you can find, or shiitake mushrooms like a lot of Koreans like to do. But I highly recommend oyster mushrooms if they're available to you. I love the flavor and texture it lends to the whole dish, especially when cooked the way I'll be showing you. They have a kind of meatiness to them and are packed full of umami. Finally, for seasoning all the vegetables and the sauce, mince about 10 cloves of garlic and a few shallots or an onion. If you're wondering by now where the meat is, I actually like eating my bibimbap without it. First, because I'm a die-hard vegetable lover and I think bibimbap tastes much cleaner this way. I like appreciating each and every vegetable that I treated with so much care. Secondly, I think it's more true to the way most Koreans ate throughout history. Korea has a very long and rich history of farming and foraging, and beef only became widely available in the 1970s with industrial farms. But of course, if you'd like to add meat, you're more than welcome. So now that the prep work is done, let's get cooking. First, sauté the onions over medium heat with a neutral oil until slightly caramelized. You want them to have a bit of a bite to them. And season with a little salt at the very end. Just a little tip about the pan, instead of scrubbing it between each cook, you can quickly run it under hot water while it's hot and simply wipe it down with a paper towel. Now we're ready for the carrots. Sauté them on medium-high heat with a bit of sesame oil until they're softened but still have a bite to them. Season lightly with salt and sesame seeds. Do the same with the parsnips and salsify. Next, cook the zucchini over medium-high heat with a bit of garlic, just until they give, but still have a bite to them. Season with salt at the end. Now come the mushrooms. Crank up the heat to high with a good amount of neutral oil. Add the mushrooms carefully, not overcrowding the pan, and give them a chance to sear before you give them a toss. When they're nicely browned on almost all the sides, add a nice pinch of garlic, give it another toss, turn off the heat, and add a drizzle of soy sauce. We can now blanch the greens. Bring a pot of salted water to a boil. Also have a bowl of cold water prepared with some ice if you have it. Drop in the kohlrabi leaves and blanch for a minute till softened. Then into the ice water they go. Do the same with the spinach. I could only find baby spinach today, but if you could get a hold of regular spinach with the long stems on, please do so as they taste so much better. Since the baby spinach is so small and delicate, I'll only need a few seconds in the water just until they're wilted. Shock them in the ice water, then squeeze out all the water. Now let's marinate these and the kohlrabi that we julienned earlier. These are the ingredients you'll need, plus some sesame oil. Pull apart the blanched greens, add a splash of sesame oil, and add garlic, salt, and gochugaru. For the kohlrabi, omit the garlic and add salt, gochugaru, sesame seeds, sesame oil, and rice vinegar. By the way, if you don't have gochugaru, you can use whatever chili or cayenne pepper you have or skip it altogether. I think the essential flavor here actually is the sesame oil. Now let's fry up the sunchokes. In a small pan, warm about 1/3 inch of neutral oil on medium heat. You'll know the oil is ready when the bubbles start forming around your chopsticks, like this. Dry the sunchokes well and fry them in 150 degrees Celsius oil until golden. You can also do this with parsnip or carrot chips as well, if that's all you have on hand, or skip this part entirely. I just wanted to show you different ways you can think about making bibimbap. It was also a really good excuse to make sunchoke chips, because they're really delicious. Sprinkle with some salt, set them aside, and try your best not to eat all of them while you're cooking. And last but not least, let's fry up the egg, sunny side up. I like to cook mine with the whites nice and crispy. Now let's make the sauce. Most of you probably know that the quintessential flavor of bibimbap comes from gochujang, the rich fermented chili paste that's a mother sauce of Korean cooking. You can find packaged gochujang and the rest of the dry pantry items at your local grocery store or online. I'm gonna make this sauce assuming that you have gochujang on hand. If not, I'll show you an alternative version later. In a small pan, sweat some garlic and shallots that we minced earlier with a bit of sesame oil. When those are softened, add the gochujang and roast it for just a few minutes. Add some mirin, cook off the alcohol for a few minutes, then take it off the heat. To this mixture, add more sesame oil, soy sauce, maple syrup, rice vinegar, sesame seeds, and some water to loosen it up if you need to. And as with all sauces, make sure you taste and adjust the seasoning to your liking. Now, if you don't have access to gochujang, I'll show you an alternative version. In a tablespoon of sesame oil, sauté the garlic, shallots, and a half teaspoon of gochugaru or some minced chili. Add a few tablespoons of the mirin, cook off the alcohol. Then add the soy sauce, maple syrup, and some more sesame oil. Take it off the heat and mix in some doenjang or miso paste. And combine this with some sesame seeds and some rice vinegar. If the sauce is too thick, you can always loosen it up with some water. This sauce is also a great alternative for kids if you omit the chili. Now that we have all our mise en place, let's plate it all up. In a very large bowl, add a mound of cooked sushi rice, about a cup to cup and a half depending on your appetite. Now place the vegetables thoughtfully around the rice, arranging them nicely with contrasting colors. with your egg, the sauce, and a final drizzle of sesame oil. Look how colorful and beautiful that is. So wherever you are in the world, remember these 4 key tips for making bibimbap. First, consider the contrast in colors. After all, you do eat with your eyes first. Secondly, consider how you'll balance the 5 flavor profiles: salty, sweet, sour, bitter, and umami. Next, consider what kind of contrast and textures you can bring to the dish: crispy, crunchy, creamy, chewy, unctuous. Finally, you could even consider adding some contrast in temperature. Today I used only cucumbers, but in warmer months you can chop in some romaine lettuce or even arugula. And a word about the portion size here. The ingredients prepared today are enough for about 4 good servings. That means if you're living alone, you now have enough food for about 4 meals. I highly recommend making a double portion of what you need so you can have at least 2 meals ready to go. Now let's have a taste. Mix it well like this. There's actually a whole art to mixing bibimbap, and Koreans will tell you you're either good at it or you're not. And judging from this video, I think I fit into the latter camp. If it looks dry, just add some more gochujang or sesame oil. So incredibly comforting and satisfying with a perfect balance of so many elements. It's salty, sweet, spicy, crunchy, and creamy. Now that's good bibimbap. So there you have it, a solid guide to making authentic tasting bibimbap your way. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and post a comment or a question below. I truly enjoy hearing from every one of you. Till next time, take care and see you in the next video.